Hello everyone, my name is Phil Calvert and welcome to the Financial Advisor Mastermind and Challenge. Over the next few days, leading experts and consultants to the financial planning profession will be sharing amazing insights into just what makes a world-class financial advice business. Today, I'm delighted to be speaking with Martin Bamford, one of the most high-profile financial planners in the profession. But today he's joining us in his role as CEO of Bamford Media, a new and exciting digital agency to the financial services industry. Hi, Martin. How are you today?
Yeah, very well indeed. Thank you, Phil. Thanks for having me on here.
Oh, great pleasure. Really pleased to have you. So a digital agency, let's just get our heads right, first of all, on exactly what that is, because digital agencies, to me, sound like something that a large provider might employ. And as far as I'm aware, the vast majority of financial advisors, certainly in the UK, kind of do their own marketing, although they might outsource bits and pieces. So what's a digital agency and why do financial advisors need one?
Well, you're quite right. I think historically, financial advisors would have looked at that title digital agency and they would have thought, that's not for me. That's something a large product provider would want, maybe a fund provider. Effectively, what we do, and the reason we started Bamford Media, was to make things for financial planners. And we were getting lots of financial planners coming to us in my role as a financial planner at Informed Choice, saying, we need help. We need help with our blog. We need help creating a podcast. We need help making videos or creating a magazine. All the things they were seeing us do at Informed Choice and seeing us do with a great deal of success at Informed Choice, wanting to do themselves, but not really knowing where to start. And you're quite right. Lots of IFAs, lots of financial planners have in-house marketing capacity. They have teams of people, individuals who can do these things. But actually, a few of the firms we've engaged recently have just needed specialisms. So things that we've got experience doing that maybe they don't have the resource, they don't have the time to learn the skills to do. So whether that's producing a podcast, which requires a great deal of sort of technical know-how, or creating a magazine, things that they don't necessarily want to create the capabilities to do in-house.
Yeah. In the old days, we just talked about the stuff that financial advisors would put out. It'd be a newsletter, a hard copy more often than not. But things have really changed with the internet, haven't they? And we kind of group this under the heading of content. So just run us through what content really is and why it's important.
I think content it's hard to define in a way because the internet, digital marketing has opened that up so much, and there's so many different things you can now do which come under that term digital marketing or content marketing. It's really anything you create and you produce and you put out there that enhances a customer's understanding of what you do, what you're about. So your brand, effectively, whether that's your personal brand or your business's brand. And I think traditionally we think of content marketing in terms of blogging and podcasting and creating videos, so vlogging, so those three core areas. But of course, it also encompasses social media marketing, so our use of Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram, all these wonderful platforms. But really anything that we produce, and with the growth of the internet, it's created quite an interesting opportunity as well for financial planners to go back to traditional forms of marketing and produce printed content, magazines, for example. Great opportunity there.
Yeah, I'd like to come on to you because your magazine, I've seen it, and some would say, "Wow, that's old school," but because it's different, it comes over as very new and exciting. Some of the feedback I get from financial advisors about content is that there's a lot of confusion as to what direction they should actually take. I have financial advisors say to me, well, should I have a blog, or should I be on YouTube, or should I be podcasting? How do they know what's the right approach for them to take?
Well, in a perfect world, you'd want to do everything, and you'd want to be everywhere. But none of us have time, the resource, the budget to do everything. So you have to pick and choose the bits that are most effective for you. It all comes back to starting with your strategy. What type of clients are you looking to speak to? Where do those clients hang out? So I think every financial planning firm should have a marketing strategy in place. They should have a client avatar. They should have a really detailed description of their perfect client, their target audience. And once you've got that in place, actually making decisions about where to allocate your content is fairly straightforward because you can see exactly what that client's like, the sorts of things they're interested in, where they hang out on the internet. I think every firm needs to have a website. That's your hub. That's where you add your blog posts, you add your content. But from there, the choices are pretty much limitless in terms of where you go with your content marketing, where you go for your digital marketing.
Yeah. So websites, that's a really interesting topic because, it doesn't seem to me all that long ago that there was still a percentage of financial advisors in the UK that didn't have a website. But I think we're all about there right now. In your view, what makes up a great website for a financial advisor?
Um, it's a tough one. Lots of different approaches to creating a website can be good, and it depends on the type of client you're talking to and interested in talking to. So for some financial planners, having almost a shopfront website is enough. Just a brochure type website explaining what they do. And if your main marketing goal is about client preservation rather than acquisition, then just having something relatively simple that's regularly updated is great, because it helps to reinforce those existing client relationships. It might encourage referrals. If you're growing your business, which many financial planners will be, and you're looking to acquire new clients, I think your website has to do a lot more. And it has to be, as I said earlier, almost like a hub for content. So you need to be keeping it regularly updated. You need to have things on there that attract people and then attracts an engagement. So taking the client's email address, for example, and then having a follow-up process with that, whether it's inviting them to a webinar at a later date, doing something with them to move them through your sales funnel. So different websites, different purposes for different financial planners, but make sure it's customized, make sure it's personal. I think the worst crime I see out there committed by financial planners is using these templated websites from networks and from some marketing agencies. And we need to present ourselves as financial planners as having our unique selling points. What's different about us? Why should a client come and speak to us and not the competition down the road? And if our website looks the same and reads the same and has the same stock images as every other financial planner out there, we're not winning that game.
Yeah, I did some research myself on common images that are used on advisors' websites, and I was stunned just how many compasses, lighthouses, sailing ships, elderly people sitting on park benches,
handshakes,
and there's quite a lot of flying kites with grandchildren I've seen.
I'm sure that people go to a stock image website and they just type in financial advice stock images and they use the same pictures, but that's not your brand. That's not what you're trying to represent. And I think as soon as you go down the stock route, you're really risking diluting what you're about and what makes you special.
So clearly you guys at Bamford Media, you create websites, but what if someone is looking locally, for somebody local to them to create, what sort of characteristics should an advisor be looking for in a web designer?
I think it's essential that anyone you engage to deliver a website for you understands what you're about. I think it's very easy to go off and find any person who's good with website development, but if they don't really understand the market, if they don't understand the technical jargon, what makes the clients tick, what the client's concerns and worries are going to be, I think whatever they produce for you, it might be technically wonderful, the website, but the messaging on it is going to be completely off. So I think somebody with real experience of your sector, and for financial planners, that's obviously a financial planning sector, is essential. I think also somebody that's creating a website that you can have a great deal of input and control over in the future. So we see lots of agencies produce websites, and then 12 months later, the FCA makes a regulatory change and some warning needs to be changed on the website. The financial planner can't do that easily themselves. They have to go back and re-engage with the agency to do it. So using some sort of content management system like WordPress, like Joomla, where you've got real control over the content and updates you can make. So get involved in the process. Don't just sort of draw up your spec and then hand it over to an agency and delegate responsibility for it. It's got to be a two-way relationship.
Interesting. Someone was telling me the other day that there's possibly a case these days for having more than one website. Imagine somebody is in a situation, maybe they're nearing retirement at work, they've got questions about their retirement income, so they're looking for a pensions and a retirement income specialist. They do their Google search or however they find you, and they arrive on your website. And your website, once you've got past the compasses and the lighthouses, it might say pensions. There's a link for pensions. There's a link for long-term care. There's a link for protection. Is that a mistake that advisors are making by putting too much content on there and not focusing on, we are pensions experts? Yes, we do other stuff. But if you're looking for a pensions expert, we're the people to come to. So is there a case of having more than one website?
There is. I think when we talk about niche marketing and really focusing on a particular client audience profile, the big fear we see from financial planners is, well, if I focus on profile X, then profile Y and Z and A and B, etc., are going to ignore me. They're not going to come to me, or I'm going to have to reject them if they do. And of course, that's not the case. What we do by focusing on a particular target audience and having very specific messaging on our website, very specific target on our website, is we really speak directly to that target profile, and we're far more successful. It's using a rifle, being very accurate with it rather than just blasting a shotgun everywhere. So you allocate your budget and your spend very, very accurately, a specific audience type. And I think having a different website for different audience types makes sense. You probably don't want to go crazy and have a portfolio of 20 websites, but maybe 2 or 3 different websites which are regularly updated, which are kept current, which really speak directly to that particular target audience. I think that makes an awful lot of sense.
So I would imagine 1 or 2 advisors at that will be thinking, oh, now he's telling me I need 3 websites, so that's more cost. I mean, is it expensive these days? Or
No, I think when we look back 10 years and you commissioned a website for sort of 10, 20 grand or something, those days are long gone.
Yes.
I think the websites we build, which are fully built, I'm not doing a sales pitch here, but we're talking under £2,000 for a comprehensive website build. And I think that's my first ever website I had built by an agency, and it was 5 figures. So it's the cost has come down so much because so much of the work now is automated, because there's open source software available. We're not having to pay for expensive software to host it all. It's much more affordable.
Yeah. So let's just dig a little bit deeper into specific types of content. And one of the things that comes up time and time again is blogging. So first of all, what's the value of blogging to a financial advisor?
Immense. I think if you can become a regular blogger and you can really share your insights and your experience, it's all again about talking directly to the audience you're looking to talk to. It's about being very visible. It's about demonstrating your expertise and your competence. It's about being found as well. So blogging is fantastic for search engine optimization.
Right.
We have a long tail of blogs now on our Informed Choice website, I think exceeding 4,000 different blog posts. Wow. So the search traffic we get from that on a monthly basis, you may only get 1 or 2 search terms per blog. You multiply that across such a wide portfolio of different blog items, and we're guaranteed to have a huge amount of traffic looking for specific things and then finding us as a result of it. So I think demonstrating your expertise, also it's great practice if you want to sort of practice becoming a better communicator with your clients. If you're able to form an idea and articulate it in writing really clearly, that really helps you become a better communicator. So I think there's all sorts of benefits for financial planners to do it.
Oh, that's interesting. And so how often, I mean, I've got a couple of contacts I know who blog almost every day. Clearly they see some benefits in that. And I would imagine to some people that would feel like it's becoming a full-time job. But so how often should an advisor be blogging?
I think your minimum should be once a week. I think any less than once a week, and you really sort of lose the value and the momentum you build with that. It, like any habit, the more you do it, the easier it gets. And the first 10, the first 20 might feel like an incredibly hard piece of work, and you may hate every word you've written and think, I just want to tear it up and start again. I think just start, get it done, get it out there, and with practice, it gets easier. I'm quite happy now writing a 400 or 500 word blog post in 20 minutes, doing a quick edit, getting it published. And that's from practice, it's from experience. But as soon as you do it less than once a week, it just loses its impact. We did some research earlier in the year. We looked at 500 IFA websites, and we found out on average, the blog section hadn't been updated for 6 months. And as soon as you put a blog section on your website and you forget to update it or don't bother to update it for 6 months, you may as well not have a blog section on your website. And then, of course, you lose all the benefits of having a blog.
So that suggests to me that those are possibly financial advisors. Someone said to them somewhere along the line, you need to be blogging, and they have a go at that, and then they wonder why aren't the clients all coming in? So you're saying it's really something to work on, keep it going, keep consistent.
Consistency is the key here, and there's no such thing as an overnight success when it comes to content marketing or digital marketing. It can take years to build up a big enough library and a big enough consistent message for people to actually then pick up the phone, feel they know you and they like you and they trust you, and to get in touch. When we launched our podcast, for example, it took, I think, 18 months for the first listener to actually get in touch with me. So and that's a long time, 1.5 years, when you're effectively talking to the wind. You don't know if anyone's really paying attention to what you're saying, but you've got to trust that you are building an audience it will just take a long time for that level of trust in that audience to build sufficiently high enough for them to contact you.
Okay. And do you have any techniques for coming up with content? I know one advisor I know up in Manchester, he builds a blog. He does a blog on a Monday morning, and he bases it around content that he saw in the personal finance pages over the weekend. So he'll pick stuff out, and he said he'll pick 3 papers and he'll literally write something around those, and he'll put his spin on it.
Yeah.
Does that sound like something that could work?
Yeah, absolutely. I think any system like that, where the inspiration out there is endless. You can listen to Today program on Radio 4 over breakfast and typically get 2 or 3 newsworthy items that you've got an opinion on. And it's all about finding something that's topical, that people are interested in, that are listening about, and putting your spin on it and having a decently strong opinion. So not just saying, that's what's happening, but saying this is what I think it means.
Yeah.
So listening to what's in the press, use Google News is a fantastic resource for this. So you can see what the most popular trending headlines are in business and finance. Great ways to do it. Ask product providers to add you to their press release mailing lists. So most product providers produce original research. They do a survey of their audience. They come up with some thoughts. They have expert comments. They'll send you that if you ask for it. And they do it on a daily basis. So every day now in my inbox, I get 10 plus original pieces of research that we could write a blog about, produce a podcast about, do some social media sharing around. So, and also I think listen to your clients and listen to the questions they're asking you, and then use that as an opportunity to answer the questions in the form of a blog.
Yeah, almost every question a client gives you, write it down, because that could be good content for the future.
Absolutely, yeah.
I like what you said about put your original spin and your own thoughts on it. Many people will know you can now blog on LinkedIn. And one of the things LinkedIn specifically looks for in articles and blogs on LinkedIn is original content with your thoughts, your opinion, maybe your data as well. Whilst they have an algorithm, they also have humans that look at your blog, and if they can see this is original content, then they give it a big, big boost.
Well, I've learned this from years of speaking to journalists as well, which is a journalist isn't interested in your comment if it's yes, I agree. Or no, I disagree. If it's very bland and it doesn't really have an opinion behind it, they're not going to run your commentary in the press. But if you take a position, it doesn't have to be controversial, although that does help. But take some sort of position and argue your case, and therefore you have something interesting and people take an interest. You're not going to please everyone by doing that, so you probably will alienate a particular group by doing that. But going back to what we talked about, niche marketing, that's fine as long as you're pleasing your particular target audience. That's all that really matters.
Well, that's interesting. So a final sort of question about blogging. It's a question I get asked quite a lot. And I hear various answers. So I'd be really interested to hear your view on this. So a question financial advisors ask me is, where should I blog? Should the blog be on my website, or should I be using a blog tool like, I don't know, WordPress or Tumblr or Blogger by Google? Where's the best place to actually be doing this?
Now, in my opinion, it's on your own website, and that's because you've got control and ownership over the content. There's a real risk, I think, if you put it on likes of LinkedIn or anywhere else, that you don't own that real estate, and they could change the algorithm. They could go bust. You could have been putting blogs on MySpace many years ago, and it just wouldn't exist anymore. So I think owning the real estate is really important. It gives you a great degree of control. That doesn't mean you don't also share it on platforms like LinkedIn or Medium or Blogger or anything like that. But own your space effectively by having that hub under your control.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you. Okay, so that's kind of looked at blogging. Now, something you're particularly well known for, particularly in your role as a financial planner, is podcasting. And I think you were probably weren't you the first financial advisor in the UK or in the world to do a personal finance podcast?
I still stake that claim, back in 2004, I think it was.
So you were doing podcasts before podcasts existed?
They existed a little bit, and the reason I started them back then is I was on a ferry coming back from the Isle of Wight one weekend, reading the paper and reading about the BBC and how they were launching their podcasts. And me being me, I thought, well, if the BBC can do this, I can do it. So I learned how to hand code the RSS feed and do it. It didn't go particularly well. I think we produced something like 7 episodes before I gave up and realized it was too much work and too early, effectively. Very few people back then knew what a podcast was. But then we came back into it about 5 years ago and haven't looked back.
Yeah. So you said something there, which I would imagine is at the heart of why a lot of financial advisors don't do a podcast. You said hard code the RSS feed.
Yes, yeah.
Which sounds pretty scary. So let's just talk us through a podcast. What is it? And why are so few financial advisors doing it? Yet the ones that are doing it, as far as I can see, are getting spectacular results from it.
Yeah, it's an incredible thing. I mean, it's very basic terms. A podcast is an audio file, and it's an MP3 file, which people will be familiar with by listening to music and things.
Yeah.
But it's an audio file. It's served up to your device. So if you've got an iPod or a Galaxy or something, or an iPhone, through a podcast player piece of software. So every time you add an audio file, a podcast episode to your site, it automatically gets played into the podcast player. And the best way to look at it is it's a radio show on demand. So you're producing your own radio show, and people can download or stream it on demand when they want through their device or through their computer.
Okay. So some would say, and we hear this all the time, some people say, but surely video is the way to go. Why are we doing something which is like radio, which is a bit old school? So what are the pros and cons of each?
Well, if you're like me and you've got a face for radio, I think it's an obvious choice. So I think some people just don't like being on camera. And it takes me a lot more effort to be on camera than it does to speak directly into a microphone, not worry about the sort of visual appearance of everything. I think there's something inherently intimate about podcasting. The fact that you're speaking directly into somebody's ears, it creates a closer relationship than I think video can do. And also I think it's about using available time. So I consume a lot of podcast content, and for me it will be when I'm walking the dogs in the morning, when I'm going to the gym, when I'm driving between meetings. That's when I'll be downloading. I'll have a number of podcasts downloaded on my iPod, which I can just play at any time when I've got that spare time. So to watch a video, it's very hard to watch a video, and in fact, it's illegal to watch a video whilst you're driving. It's quite antisocial to do so when you're on the train. So I think there's reasons why podcasting goes ahead of video content.
Right, that's it. That's really interesting. And can you? I mean, you knock them out a couple a week? Is that right?
2 a week, yeah. So once a week we do an interview episode, and then once a week is what we call a solo cast. So it's just me talking about various issues. I tend to batch that production content, so I'm not recording an interview every week. I tend to record 3 or 4 in a week, and then have a couple of weeks off, and then go back to it. Okay. So we create that up front, and then schedule it to go over time. But no, we've now almost approached 400 episodes. Doing a couple a week. And again, it's that consistency. It's that ability to just keep going and to trust the process and trust the results will come in due time.
Okay. So how hard is this? If a financial advisor was watching this today and said, okay, I'm going to give this a go, what's he or she going to need to get or to do? Is it going to cost them a lot of money? How does it work?
I think there's 2 aspects to this. There's how hard is it from a technology side, and then how hard is it from the actual doing side. So from a tech perspective, you can do what I did and get really obsessed about the kit, spend a small fortune on all your different studio bits and the rest of it. But actually, you can produce a very high quality audio podcast for very little cost. So the headset that I'm currently wearing, a couple of £100. The interface it goes into, a couple of £100. That's effectively it, from a tech point of view. And you can get broadcast quality audio from that.
Right.
And then you have to have a host where you put your audio files. And we use one called Libsyn, which is about $15 or $20 a month. And it helps to have a website where you can share show notes and links to different things. So if you've already got a website, great, just host it on that or create a new one. As I said earlier, maybe a couple of £1,000 for a decent quality website. That's it. That from a tech side, it is now very, very straightforward. It's not like it was 12, 15 years ago when I first started, where I had to learn to code, where I had to learn how to do this all. Now it is incredibly straightforward. If you wanted to, you could use your iPhone and record straight into your iPhone.
I was going to say, so it could be as simple as that. Just literally pick up your phone, record the audio file, upload it to the hosts.
Yep.
And some way it finds itself onto iTunes and the other.
Yeah, so once you upload the audio to a host, the host typically produces this thing called an RSS feed, really simple syndication feed. And that's what you submit to iTunes and all the other podcast players. That's how people find you on those platforms. So the tech side now, I think, is incredibly simple. The doing side, I think, is what maybe takes a bit more practice. And I go back and listen to my first sort of 10, 20 podcast episodes. And please don't do that, by the way. They're still there. You can do. But they are awful. I don't have the confidence. I don't have the questions. I don't have the rapport with the guests. Always, the sound quality is awful. All sorts of reasons why they're bad. But 400 episodes later, and I go now into podcast interviews with actually people who are, in some cases, minor celebs and major celebs in some cases. And I don't have that same feeling of trepidation. I don't have the same nerves. I can conduct the interview without worrying too much about, well, what question am I going to ask next. It was always my main panic in the past. As they were speaking, I wasn't listening to their answer. I was thinking, what am I going to say
Yeah,
next?
that's interesting.
So
Yeah.
it comes with experience. I think you become a good interviewer over time, and the insights you then start gaining from people. We interview a really wide range of people for our podcast, everything from personal finance and investing through to lifestyle stuff. So sort of these Nordic different attitudes like hygge and lagom and all that sort of thing, which I just find fascinating.
Yeah.
And you get these wonderful insights. And then, of course, you've got things to speak to your clients about, and you've got real experience to then take and insights into different areas of their lives. So it's incredibly valuable.
That's interesting. I know one advisor who's planning his podcasts, again in the north of England, and he's been trying to work out what the right format is to do. Actually, he mentioned your name, and noticed that there's the solo cast, which scares the daylights out of him, and I suspect a lot of people. But I would imagine that comes with practice. But the interview format seems to be quite a good one. And one of the things he's doing is interviewing local business people.
Great, yeah. Brilliant idea.
And it's as simple as that. And he literally does it in their premises as well. He was telling me they've got a fantastic butcher's just down, and he interviews the local butcher and says, what are the local issues here? And they ask the Brexit question, how are things with it? And it's absolutely fascinating. And it creates this local feeling as well. And I know local is really important to you, although you broadcast to a lot of people through your podcast. Just talk me through why local is so important to you.
Yeah, I mean, I live and work in the village here. Actually, you and I both live in the same village here in Cranley. And I've been here a very long time, 30 plus years. And I think it's going back to that niche marketing point. We realise that this is a fantastic location for our target clients. They live here.
Yeah.
If they don't work here, they live here and they commute to work and come back for the weekends and evenings and things. So we didn't need to go further afield to find the sufficient number of clients we needed to satisfy our business goals.
Yeah.
And actually, as soon as you have that very local focus, it's very easy to deploy your limited marketing budget and make a really big impact. And as one competitor told me a couple of years ago, become the only game in town, because every time somebody mentions financial planning, retirement planning, investment in Cranley, they immediately associate those terms with informed choice because we're so visible. So last few weeks, I've been out there. I hosted the local Christmas lights switch on. We organised and sponsored a charity 10K race at nearby Dunsfold Park, and then just over a week ago, hosted the Cranley Santa Dash for 165 runners. So all of these have our banners up, they have us very visible, they have us sharing stuff on social media, and that's just a small segment of what we do in terms of local marketing. But it's just the results are just incredible, really are.
So is that one of the reasons and some of the thinking, just to touch on the last area of content we can cover today, is that one of the reasons why you introduced a physical magazine?
Yeah, I think that's important. So I always take this view that you zig when others zag. So, if everyone's focusing all their time and attention online, that for me was a good indicator to go offline and sort of look back to the more traditional methods of marketing. I'm a great believer in giving people something tangible. And as lovely as a podcast episode is, or a video file, or a blog, it's electronic. It disappears as soon as it's read, and people's attention span is so short as well. So they can very quickly move on to the next thing. If they're browsing on a website browser, they read your blog, there's no guarantee that their second destination will be the contact page on a website. It's probably going to be Facebook or a cat video on YouTube or something. So I think something tangible, and producing a magazine, we had so much content already through our blogs and podcasts and the rest of it, and the local events we sponsor and host. So something tangible twice a year in the form of a 36-page magazine, where we can have some fantastic imagery. We can really share a mix of insight, so technical articles about using your ISA allowance and pension lifetime allowance, that sort of thing, sponsorships and community work we do. And then a big thing we do in each episode of a magazine, each edition of a magazine, is a client feature. So we make a client our cover star, and then the client tells their story about their life, about how financial planning's helped them meet their goals. And that's our big sort of 6-page feature in each magazine. And of course, what do? When we give them copies of the magazine where they're the cover star, they give it to all of their friends and family. It's a big deal, and these people have never been on the cover of a magazine in their lives, and here they are. So we give them a framed copy of photos from a photo shoot. We give them plenty of copies of the magazine for them to hand out to friends and family, and it's a fantastic referral tool.
That's really, really interesting. So let's just fast forward a few years. Things are always changing in the financial planning world, whether it's a piece of new legislation or something like that. In terms of how financial advisors market themselves in, say, a couple of years' time, maybe 5 years' time, it's really interesting. We used to look 10 years ahead, didn't we? But 5 years ahead these days sounds quite scary in terms of the amount of change that there's likely to be. Now, it's always been the case that the vast majority of advisors get the vast majority of their new inquiries from referrals and existing clients. With that in mind, and with electronic financial advice, for want of a better expression, how do you see financial advisors marketing and promoting themselves in the future?
I interestingly, going back to something Bill Gates said many years ago, which was, I think we always we always overestimate the amount of change in 2 years, but we underestimate the amount of 10 years. I'm not convinced a huge amount's going to change in a couple of years' time. I think obviously the platforms that are most popular will be different. We always see a bit of competition between the likes of Facebook, Instagram, etc., who's at the top of the charts. And the places people go for their content consumption will be different. But I don't think we're going to see a radical change in a couple of years' time around what we do. But I think we see greater competition all the time for attention. And I really do think that advisors in 2 years' time or 5 years' time are going to need to almost be omnipresent. They're going to need to have their content on many different platforms and on a very regular basis. The thing I always criticize myself for is not producing enough content. And that's with me writing several blogs a week, 2 podcast episodes, multiple social media messages every day. There's always more I feel we need to be doing to just stay at the front of mind for the people we want to stay front of mind for. So I think the big challenge for financial planners in a few years' time is going to be how they produce and distribute enough of their message on a regular basis.
I mean, should financial advisors have their own apps? I mean, like podcasting, it never ceases to amaze me how few financial advisors have a presence on people's mobile devices.
Yeah, I think as long as you're adding something that's special and unique and it's not just an app version of your website, yeah, absolutely. I think if you've got an innovation, you've got a great idea that can be turned into an app, that can now be done relatively simply and cheaply. The other thing, I guess, is going where your clients are. So not trying to move them away from the platforms they're already using, but thinking, okay, they spend a lot of time in this particular ecosystem, and that may be Facebook. How do I spend more time where they are already? So go to your clients rather than trying to drag them away from a platform and make them come to you.
Yeah. I mean, never mind the future. Today, do you think, is there any big trick that financial advisors are missing when it comes to marketing and promotion?
The big one from a digital marketing point of view that I'm amazed that more financial planners aren't doing is Facebook pixels. Right. So a short piece of code that sits on your website. And then every time somebody visits your website, you've got the ability to retarget them with advertising on Facebook. And that, to me, is so effective. It's so low cost. It's ridiculous. We're talking a few cents per click. And if you combine that with a good lead magnet, so some sort of simple guide that they can download in return for an email address, you've got them in your sales funnel. You've got them in your engagement funnel. You can start the process of communicating with them regularly, getting them to know, like, and trust you, and then they become a client at some point. So earlier this year, we produced a lead magnet around defined benefit pension transfers. We put a simple landing page on our website. We combined it with the Facebook pixel, and we maybe have spent $40 or $50 on Facebook ads since. We've now got 600 prospective clients from that one lead magnet activity. And it was just so simple. It runs on autopilot. There's no tweaking involved on a regular basis. And we've now got an opportunity to invite them to a webinar, to seminars, to move them through that engagement funnel so they become engaged clients.
That's really interesting. I'm fascinated by this. To me, it makes me think that we need to redefine the word client. If I was to ask any financial advisor, just tell me what a client is to you, I'm going to get the same answer. But I think that if someone has visited your website as a financial advisor and they've seen your lead magnet, your guide to pensions or something like that, and they said, yeah, I'm happy to exchange my email address for that, to my way of thinking, they are a client now, but a different type of client. They're certainly a prospect, but we've got them. We've got access. The relationship has started. and it's up to us now to try and age and ascend that relationship through value such as webinars and so on.
Yeah, and they've given you permission to start that process of education, of informing them. So it's not just a one-off activity, having a lead magnet that gets downloaded. You have to have a follow-up in place. For us, that's a weekly email newsletter where we share our best content. It's getting them on our magazine mailing list. It's inviting them to webinars and events. And I think as long as you've got that whole process in place, you're not just doing a one-off activity, your marketing becomes part of a wider funnel, and you do move them towards the eventual goal of engaging with you as a client, paying your financial planning fees, getting assets under management, which is where we're trying to get them to eventually.
So can you automate that? Do you, when somebody downloads your lead magnet, you've got their email address, there's a system kick in?
Yeah, it does. It goes. They download it. The email address goes straight into our mail software. Every week, every Friday morning, they get our email newsletter, and we tag the email address so we know exactly what their particular area of interest is. So we can really tailor it to that particular area of interest, and we can see what they've clicked over time as well. So if they've clicked an article in one of our newsletters about a particular podcast topic, we know in the future they've got an interest in that, and we can then really target our advertising, our marketing to that particular interest.
Yeah, you hit a little hobby horse of mine there, is knowing your numbers when it comes to who's clicked on what, how many people. Never cease to amaze me how few financial advisors know how many people visited their website last week, last month, last quarter, because when you start looking at those numbers, quite often it's jaw-dropping, if not eye-opening.
Yeah, and it's an end of month ritual for me, is to look into our Google Analytics, not just look at the volume of traffic, but really understand what they were interested in, where they stayed the longest, what they weren't interested in. So where we've got exit rates that are very high, and then looking and then tailoring future content to the particular areas of interest. And same for our podcast downloads. If I see a podcast episode which has got a huge amount of attention, I'm immediately then going on looking for 3 or 4 more guests around that same topic. So look at maybe different perspectives, different insights on the same topic, because I know people are interested in it.
Interesting. You probably know a fantastic bit of software I've been using for the benefit of our listeners and viewers is a tool called Hotjar. It's free, although there's a paid version as well. And you just put a little bit of code into your website, and it shows you videos of people looking around your website. You can see a trail of where their mouse moves around, what they click on most of all, how long they stay. It's slightly creepy at first, but it is absolutely amazing. And you can see some people just arrive on the site and they leave straight away. Others linger for ages. Some people click on absolutely everything and then do nothing at all. It's another layer of insight into how people are interacting with you in your online world.
Yeah, and we need to get better at this. We need to get better at understanding website visitor behavior, the bits they're really interested in, the bits that turn them off, making sure our key messages are above the fold. So don't expect people to scroll down the page on your homepage. Little things like this, but it's optimizing your website content to make it as effective as possible, as efficient as possible with your target audience.
Yeah, fantastic. So if somebody wanted to, I just want to just quickly go back to the podcasting thing, because I think that's, to me, just strikes me as a no-brainer in many ways, because it's a vehicle to get across a perception of your expertise, and people will be able to tell straight away, even if they can't see you, whether they like you. If somebody wanted to get started with podcasting now, today, what's the first thing they should do?
Well, if they genuinely want to get started, I think they have to plan out a strategy. You mentioned earlier different show formats, so whether that's going to be interviews, it's going to be solo casts, roundtable discussion, anything like that. They need to plan out their first 10 episodes, I think, as a starting point. Who are they going to speak to? What topics are they going to cover? What's the broad format? And there's loads of resources out here for this. You can get books on the subject. You can read articles on it. So how to structure your podcast episode. And then really you go as sort of big or as small as you want to in terms of the tech and everything that backs it up and who you approach. But now is the time to get into this. As you mentioned earlier, relatively few financial planners are doing this. I can count them on 2 hands, a number doing it in the UK. And the ones who are getting a great deal of success with it, because there's very little competition. Because people are desperate for this sort of content. They want to listen to personal finance experts talking about topical material whilst they're walking the dog, whilst they're commuting, whilst they're at the gym. And at the moment, they have me and maybe 5 others to choose from. And that's it. So now is the time to do it. And also looking at what the BBC are currently doing, they've launched their BBC Sounds app. I think that shows us that the BBC are investing a huge amount into the podcasting system. and expecting podcasting growth. Podcasting as an audience figure has grown year on year for the past 10 years. Significant rates, but it's still a tiny percentage of people in the UK listen to them. So it's got huge growth potential going forwards.
And just very briefly, what are the benefits that come out of podcasting for an advisor? In fact, have there been any unexpected benefits for you?
I think the unexpected one for me, and I didn't go into this expecting it, but it's broadened my network significantly. So now my ability to pick up the phone or drop an email to people who I didn't know of before, I didn't have any connection with before, it's just been fantastic. It's given me a great exposure to different subjects I didn't realise I had an interest in, and the ability to just talk. And I think as a podcaster, one of the qualities you need to have is this sense of interest and fascination in all things. So the ability to sort of explore different topics that you may not think are conventional financial planning topics. It's been fantastic. I've got to say, one of my podcast episodes I'm currently producing is what I've learned from my podcast guests in 2018. Yeah. So I'm going to go back through all of those interviews, 50 plus interviews, and pick out the key learning points. And it's so much. Doing one a week, you quickly realize how quickly that builds up.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Martin, this has been absolutely fantastic. I suspect we could talk for hours on end, but I guess our listeners have other things they want to do. So a key part of this is the challenge. Everybody I'm speaking with, we're asking for them to set a simple or hard, if that's what you prefer, a little challenge for advisors, something they can take up that actually gets them doing something. It's all very well listening to this stuff, but we'd love people to take action and get results as a result of doing that. So give us your challenge, please.
So my challenge is for the next year, next 12 months, I want you to create and publish one piece of content every week. And that can be a blog, so you can write something, you can record an audio podcast, or you can film a short video, like a vlog style video. But once a week for next year, produce a piece of content. And then by the end of the year, you're going to have 50 pieces of content in your library. You can share them, you can repurpose them and do different things with them. But that will give you a really, really strong foundation for your content marketing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for that. That sounds like something that everybody could probably do. And content doesn't have to be, a blog doesn't have to be enormous, does it? It doesn't have to be like a white paper or a special report.
No, 300 words will do you. From a search engine optimization perspective, 300 words is your minimum target, but 300, 400 words, you don't have to write an essay here. We're talking a handful of paragraphs to get the message across.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Martin. At the end of this video, we're going to explain how, if you want to take up Martin's challenge, a private group that you can join where you can get work with other people, see how they're getting on, help other people, get an accountability partner, but stay listening to the end of the video and we'll show you how you can go about doing that. So all that remains is me to say thank you so much to Martin. I really appreciate you joining us today. I know you're really busy. Thanks very much, and we'll see everybody again in the next video.
Thanks, Will.